If you are learning to crochet and you're feeling drawn to creating things with your hands, you are most definitely in the right place. My name is Fiona and I have taught hundreds of people how to crochet, both in person at crochet workshops and right here on this very channel. Crochet does not need to be rushed or overcomplicated, and in fact, with this video we are slowing things down and I'm taking you through the next step in your crochet journey as we learn another crochet stitch. So grab your hook and your yarn, because today we are learning the first stitch variation, which is called a half double crochet, which is also known as a half treble crochet in UK terms. To start, we're going to place our tail into the palm of our hand and wrap the yarn around our finger, ready to make our slip knot. We're going to bring the loop closest to our thumb over the top of the other loop before bringing the now back loop over and off. Pull the ends to create a loop and place that loop onto your hook. I'm just going to tighten that loop up to the size of my crochet hook and get ready to start making a chain. I'm going to pop my finger onto the loop of the hook so it doesn't spin around as I bring the yarn over the top of the hook, ready for it to catch and for me to encourage it to come through that loop. So that's our first chain that we've made, and today we're going to be making a chain of 11. So we're going to yarn over the hook and bring it through the loop on our hook for a total of 11 times. So that's 2. We can bring it over the hook again and bring it through. We're just going to repeat this until we have 11 chains. Don't worry, I'm going to remind you of how to count your chains when we get there. So for me, this is number 11. I don't expect you to count as you're crocheting, don't worry. So instead, we can count those V's. One side of that chain looks more like a plait and the other side looks like really beautiful V's, but they are ever so slightly wonky and offset from each other. So I encourage you to count one side of them. It's also important to note that this loop on our hook does not count as a chain. So we're going to start by just counting from the bottom here by our slip knot and counting one side of our V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 and 11. If you found that you've got way too many chains because you got a bit carried away, you can just remove your crochet hook and gently pull the working yarn until you have those 11 chains, and then making sure that the working yarn is at the back and you have the V's facing you, pop your hook back through that loop and then you're ready to continue on. If you don't have enough, like I don't now, just continue to make enough chains until you have 11. So that's 8 I've got now, 9, 10 and 11. Now the direction that we're going to be working is from our hook back down to our non-hook hand where that slip knot is. We always work in that direction. So for right-handed, we go from right to left, and from left-handers, we go from left to right. So at this point, we're going to be kind of doing our first combination stitch. If you've already learned how to do a US single crochet and a UK treble crochet, those two stitches make up pretty much every other stitch. It's just a variation of that. And the half double crochet, the half treble in the UK terms that we're doing today, is basically that first variation. So we are going to be working into the second chain from hook. So remember, this loop doesn't count. This is our first chain. So we're going to be working underneath the top loop of that second chain. So this loop doesn't count. There's our first chain and there's our second. Just like with the double crochet, we begin by yarning over the hook first and then we're going to insert. So get your hook ready by yarning over and keep it to the back so it's behind your chain. We're going to skip that first chain and just insert our hook underneath the top loop of that next chain or the second chain and pop that onto the hook. So just insert from the front out the back. We're then going to yarn over the hook and bring it back through that chain, so just through that first loop. You should now have 3 loops on your hook, and for this stitch we simply yarn over and we're going to pull through all 3 loops. So you probably want a little bit of looseness on your yarn at this point, and I'm literally going to pinch everything and pull it down so you can see where everything is on my hook. I'm going to pinch right where it is, pull it down a little bit to create some space to bring my hook through all 3 loops. As always, we've created a nice big hole by working into that chain, so we're going to go under the next loop of our chain and just underneath the top loop. Oh, we need to yarn over first before we insert, so it looks like we have 2 loops on our hook. We're inserting from the front out the back. We're going to yarn over and bring that loop back through our chain, neaten everything up so it looks like something to you, and then we're yarning over, ready to pull through all 3 loops. I'm just pulling down gently, so as you can see it creates a little bit more space for that hook to come through smoothly all through each of those loops. Don't worry if you do have to do it 1 loop at a time. I'm going to show you how I do that, but it gets a little bit tight and challenging. So yarn over the hook ready for our next stitch. You can see that there is something coming out of that chain here, so we need to make sure that we're going into the next chain. So this is our next chain. We're going underneath that top loop from the front out the back. We're yarning over and bringing it back through, so we have our 3 loops. If you are really struggling to pull down and pull it all through, just take your time going through each loop. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. I will be honest, there was no tension on that yarn there. Let me show you what would happen if it got a bit tight. Keep it really tight. So we're yarning over and pulling through 1, 2, and 3. Obviously the ideal is, of course, to yarn over and smoothly pull through all 3 loops, but that's not available for all of us right now. It will come with practice. There does seem to be a bit more of a potential to catch a loop as we're coming through. So I've yarned over, insert from the front out the back, bring our loop up. This is why I always reposition to make sure, if you haven't, if you just go for it, let me see if I can recreate it. Let me do that again. It can be quite a common challenge to get your yarn caught. So once you've yarned over, ready to pull through all 3, you want to keep your hook quite straight so that it's going to head straight down the middle of those stitches. If you tilt it too far the other way, either way, if too far away from you, too close, there is a chance that as you're coming through, it's really difficult and you end up with all of this mess on our hook. That doesn't look right. So if that happens, don't worry. The easiest way to correct it is just to take the whole thing off your hook. First and foremost, the world won't end. We can pick it up and have a look at what we've got and find the working yarn and just gently pull, and your working loop that's attached to your project will just ping up. See? And we're just going to pop our hook back through there before I keep pulling, just to prevent anything else coming undone. I'm then going to straighten out my chain by just giving it a little bit of a tug so those stitches and those chains become a little bit more even, and then it's easier to identify where we're working next. So we're going to yarn over the hook. Now that's a big hole and there is something in there, so we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to insert, bring our loop up, and just take a moment to see how tilted your hook head is. If it's really far forward, the same challenge can happen. You can see it's going to catch that yarn. So if you need to tilt it so you can see which direction your hook is going, create a bit more space by pulling down to make those loops a little bit looser, just to stop it catching. We're just going to repeat this stitch all the way down our chain, and we're working 1 half double crochet into each chain across. Yarn over, insert underneath just the top loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. I've got 1 more to do, and when you're at this point we will be ready to count our stitches. So we had those lovely V's to count when we were counting our chain, and we still have V's to count. It's just that this time they're on the top of our project. So with your hook at the top, just tilt it towards you and you'll see your V's. and I have 10, and so should you. Now you might be wondering, but Fiona, we started with 11 chains. Why have we now only got 10 stitches? Don't forget that we actually worked into that second chain from hook. So we skipped one and it disappears. Well, it's actually down here, but we don't worry about it anymore. We should have a stitch count of 10 half double crochets at the end of this row. We need to do, for us to work along our next row, we need to do something called a turning chain. And for a half double crochet, it is nearly always a chain of 1 that does not count as a stitch. So for that, we're simply going to make a chain again. So we yarn over the hook and just pull through the loop on our hook. And that is a turning chain of 1 or a chain of 1. I always try and remember to turn my project in the same direction, like I'm turning a page in a book. You can tell that just rolls off the tongue. And then we are ready to continue to work back across those next stitches. I will mention, look for the position of your tail. I always remind myself that on animals, tails are on the bottoms. So make sure that your tail is also on the bottom of your project. Now, when you're looking at the top of your project to find your first stitch, you're going to see your chain 1 that you've just made, and we have to skip that because it doesn't count as a stitch. Instead, if you look at the side of your project, just where my thumb is there, you'll see that there is a hole underneath that V, and that is exactly where we're going to be working that stitch. We're going to be inserting underneath the V itself of the stitch, not the chain 1. Remember to yarn over before you insert, and we're looking for that first stitch, which for me is this hole just here, and we're going to go underneath that V. Move that out for the moment because you can see that we need both loops of that stitch on our hook. It looks like a right mess for this first one. That's not you, that's just the way it looks. We're going to yarn over the hook and bring it back through the stitch. I'm just repositioning so you can see I have 1, 2, 3 loops. We're then going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops again. And that's it. We're going to work all the way down, working underneath each of these stitches. So we yarn over, insert under that next V. You see how you've made a hole? That means you've probably worked into it. And instead we're looking for the V and that hole from the side. Not this lower hole here, but in between the V and that line. So once you've inserted, make sure you've picked up both loops of that stitch, yarn over, bring your loop back through. We're then going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. You will probably see I actually pull quite far down to create the space to come through because they do catch very easily with this stitch. So we yarn over, insert into the next, we yarn over and bring our loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to repeat that all the way across to that first stitch, but I'm going to get this one wrong again to show you how it looks as we come through. So it got caught as it came through and it's all a bit bunchy underneath. If something doesn't feel right, the easiest thing to do is just to take it off your hook and redo it, because trying to correct things sometimes takes longer. Now, obviously I have my top loop here, but I want to pull this stitch out. So I'm just going to gently pull on my working yarn until that loop pops up. And then before I pull any more, reinsert the hook, pull back until we are back to working into that next stitch. I will have to share with you that this is my absolute favourite stitch. It is a little bit chunkier than a US single crochet, but it gives you a little bit more stitch height than the single. And it's just a bit squishy, so I kind of love it. And I do find that it works up quite quickly as well, but giving you a little bit more height than that US single crochet. So it's always been a bit of a firm favourite of mine. There's also lots of clever things you can do with this stitch that you'll find in some later videos. Now, as you approach the end, you may find that the stitch slips down the side of the project, and it's quite hard to see when you're just looking at the front or even tilting it towards you from the top, because it all, the yarn's in the way. So if need be, have a little move around and remember that you're looking for that V. So make sure you've yarned over and then encourage your hook. You may even have to use your nails to get that other loop on, but make sure you do pick up both loops of your V and ready to finish that final stitch. you should have the same stitch count as you had at the end of the last row, which for me was 10. And I still have 10 stitches. Wonderful. One of the most common challenges that a lot of beginners face is not really understanding how to count their stitches. And if you are missing a stitch, with crochet you can sometimes just shove it back in somewhere else, but obviously at the moment we're practicing, so it's not too essential. It's just being aware of how to count your stitches to stop your rectangles turning into triangles, because if you lose one, it will come in at the sides and it will change the shape that you're making. So we're just making little mini rectangles at the moment. So I'm going to show you once more how to do the turning chain for your half double crochet. For me, it's usually a turning chain of 1. So we're just going to yarn over and pull through, and then we can turn our work. We're making sure that our tail is on the bottom and we're traveling away from our crochet hook. Remember to look for the edge of your project. You just made that chain 1. So this is our first stitch at the edge of our project. We're going to yarn over ready to work our half double crochet, and we're going to insert underneath the loop of our stitch, making sure we've picked up both of those loops of the V. We yarn over, bring that loop back through, so we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're just going to repeat that the whole way across, working 1 half double crochet into the top of each stitch by inserting, bringing our 3rd loop up and yarning over to pull through all 3. It's always important to keep the yarn at the back when you're pushing your hook through the stitch. Otherwise, if it's kept to the front, I can't do it wrong, because the way I hold my yarn, it just means it doesn't happen. If you keep it at the front, by the time you've yarned over and brought it through, you've not got enough loops on your hook, and it just falls off if it's at the front. So we're yarning over, keeping the yarn behind our project when we insert. Then we can yarn over, bring it back through before we yarn over and pull through all 3. So this is all you need to focus on for now. There's no rush or no need to get it perfect, which says me splitting her yarn. We're just giving ourselves a little time to practice and let it feel familiar in your hands. When you're ready to take the next step, I've linked the next video in this beginner series below for you, where we're gently going to build on what you've already learned in this video. Crochet really is something you grow into stitch by stitch, and I'll be right here to guide you along the way.